The first time I heard my own name spoken in the past tense, it was raining. Rain slid down the wide glass windows of the hospital lobby, blurring the city lights into soft halos. People walked by with umbrellas and tired faces. A television in the corner played the evening news at low volume. No one noticed me standing near the entrance, still and silent. "Michael Carter was pronounced dead at the scene," the reporter said. "I watched the screen without blinking. There was my photo, the same one from our wedding day. I was smiling in a navy suit. Beside me stood my wife, Emily, her hand resting on my chest, as if she already knew I would need steadying one day. But I was standing here, breathing, thinking, dead." The story explained that a gas explosion had torn through a small warehouse on the edge of town. The building was owned by Helix Biomedical, a company that specialized in pharmaceutical research. I worked there as a compliance analyst. It was my job to make sure our safety reports were honest. Lately, they had not been. The explosion happened after I stayed late to review internal files. I remember the smell of gas, the faint hiss, then nothing but white noise and heat. When I woke up, I was not in a hospital bed. I was in a concrete room with no windows. My head throbbed. My chest felt heavy, as if something had been taken from it and replaced with something colder. A man in a grey suit stood over me. "You shouldn't have looked so closely," he said calmly. I knew his face. Daniel Reeves, Vice President of Operations. He smiled as if we were discussing quarterly profits. "You died in an accident," he continued. "That's the official story." I tried to speak, but my throat burned. "You can help us," he said, "or you can disappear." Disappear, the word felt heavier than death. They kept me for 2 days, maybe 3. Time blurred inside that room. They asked what I had seen in the files, who I had told, whether I had made copies. I told them nothing, not because I was brave, but because I was confused. I could not understand how a company that claimed to save lives could destroy one so easily. On the 4th day, they let me go. No explanation, no threats. Just a quiet car ride to a deserted bus station at dawn. "You're dead," Daniel reminded me before stepping back into the car. "Stay that way." I stood alone under a pale sky. And then I thought of Emily. We had been married for 8 years, no children. We kept saying we would try next year. Life always felt too unstable, too busy. Now I wondered if I had wasted that time. I borrowed a stranger's phone outside a diner and searched her name. Emily Carter, Communications Director, Helix Biomedical. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. She worked there too. I had helped her get the interview 5 years ago. I believed in the company then. I believed in its mission. When she got the job, we celebrated with cheap wine on our apartment balcony. Now the same company had declared me dead, and my wife still worked there. That was the moment the real fear settled in. Not fear for myself, fear that she might somehow be part of this. Or worse, that she had no idea. I stayed away for 2 weeks. I slept in motels under different names. I shaved my beard, I bought a baseball cap, and kept my head down. Every television I passed showed my face for a few days, then moved on. The world forgets quickly. But I could not forget Emily's expression the last morning I saw her. She had been tying her hair into a loose bun in the bathroom mirror. "Don't stay too late," she said. "I won't." I promised. That was the last lie I ever told her. One evening, unable to bear the distance, I drove back to our neighborhood. The house looked the same, pale blue siding, small porch light glowing softly. Through the window, I saw her sitting at the kitchen table, alone. There were papers spread out in front of her. Her shoulders were hunched, not in grief, but in concentration. I felt something twist inside me. I knocked gently on the door. She opened it halfway, expecting no one. Her eyes widened. The air left her lungs in a silent gasp. "Michael," I removed my cap. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she stepped back, her hand covering her mouth. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not rush forward. She looked at me carefully, as if confirming I was real. "They said," her voice broke, "they said you were gone." "I know." She pulled me inside and closed the door. The kitchen smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. Everything felt normal. Too normal. She touched my face with trembling fingers. "You're warm." "I'm alive." She began to cry then, not loudly, just quiet shaking sobs against my chest. I held her, but a question lingered between us like a shadow. When she finally pulled away, she looked at me differently. "What happened?" she whispered. I told her about the explosion, the concrete room, Daniel Reeves. As I spoke, I watched her. Face, shock, anger, confusion, but not guilt. "I had no idea," she said. "Michael, I swear, I know." And I realized I truly did. Emily had always believed in transparency. She joined the communications team to make companies accountable. She would never knowingly protect something corrupt. But that did not mean she was safe. "They think I'm dead," I said. "If they find out I'm here." "They won't," she said quickly. Her tone surprised me. She walked to the table and gathered the papers I had seen earlier. They were internal memos, safety audits, reports about clinical trials. "I've been looking," she admitted quietly. "After the explosion, things didn't add up. The press releases were too polished. The timelines were wrong." She met my eyes. I started digging. A slow, painful understanding formed. "My wife works for the people who killed me," I said softly. She did not flinch. "Yes," she replied, "and I'm going to expose them." That was the gentle twist of our story. Not betrayal, not conspiracy. Partnership. The next few weeks were careful and quiet. I stayed hidden in the attic space above the garage. We told neighbors Emily needed time alone to grieve. At night, she brought me files. She explained the corporate structure, the shell companies, the falsified test results that had allowed unsafe medications to pass review. It wasn't just about profit. It was about covering mistakes. The warehouse explosion had destroyed original documents. And me. One evening, Emily placed a small recorder on the kitchen table. "I have a meeting with Daniel tomorrow," she said. "He wants to discuss messaging strategy for upcoming trials." I felt a chill. "Don't go," I said. She shook her head. "If we don't get proof, they'll do this to someone else." The next day felt endless. I paced the attic, listening for her car. When she finally returned, her face was pale but steady. She handed me the recorder. Daniel's voice filled the small space. "We handled the Carter situation cleanly," he said on the recording. "Unfortunate accident, but necessary. We can't afford loose ends." My heart pounded. Necessary. The word echoed in my skull. Emily reached for my hand. "You're not a loose end," she said firmly. "You're my husband." We contacted a federal investigator anonymously. It took time. Meetings in public parks. Secure emails. Fear that we were being watched. But truth moves slowly and steadily. 6 months later, indictments were announced. Helix biomedical executives, including Daniel Reeves, were charged with fraud, obstruction, and conspiracy. The news spread faster than my death notice ever had. This time, when my name appeared on television, it was different. Whistleblower Michael Carter, previously believed deceased, Emily and I watched from our living room. She leaned against me, her head resting on my shoulder. "You could have stayed gone," she said quietly. "I know. Why didn't you?" I thought about that concrete room, the rain on the hospital windows, the hollow feeling of hearing my name in the past tense. "Because you were still here," I answered. In the months that followed, life did not return to normal. There were interviews, legal proceedings, long conversations with lawyers. We moved to a smaller town for a while, somewhere quieter, somewhere the air felt cleaner. Sometimes in the early morning, I would wake up and place a hand over my chest just to feel the steady rhythm there. Alive. Emily found work with a non-profit focused on corporate ethics. She seemed lighter, not because the world was fixed, but because she no longer carried doubt. One evening, nearly a year after the explosion, we sat on a wooden bench overlooking a lake. The water was still. The sky glowed soft orange. "I kept thinking," she said gently, "what if I had never questioned the reports?" I squeezed her hand. "But you did." She nodded. "When they told me you were dead, something felt wrong, not just emotionally. Logically, the timelines didn't match. The building inspection records were sealed too quickly." She looked at me with quiet strength. "Grief can blind people, but sometimes it sharpens them." I smiled faintly. "You saved me," I said. "No," she replied. "We saved each other." The wind moved lightly through the trees. There was no rush in the moment, no dramatic music, just steady breathing and soft water against the shore. "My wife worked for the people who killed me," I said again, but this time the words felt different, less like an accusation, more like a chapter title. "And she brought me back." She leaned her head against mine. "Next year," she said softly. "Next year what?" "We stop waiting." I understood. For years we had postponed starting a family because life felt uncertain, because careers demanded too much, because timing never seemed perfect. After death, you stop believing in perfect timing. The following spring, when Emily told me she was pregnant, we did not celebrate with cheap wine on the balcony. We sat quietly at the kitchen table, the same table where she once sorted through incriminating files. She placed my hand over her stomach. "I guess you're officially not dead anymore," she said, with a small smile. I laughed for the first time without weight behind it. Outside, rain began to fall again, gentle, steady, not an ending, not a tragedy, just weather. Life continues in quiet ways, in small rooms, in careful choices. Sometimes people disappear. Sometimes they come back. What matters is who is waiting when. They do, and this time, when the world said my name, it did not echo with loss. It carried truth and love.